Welcome back to PSC Tech Bytes. Today we keep on talking about how we can manage throttling while consuming Microsoft Graph, and I want to show you how to do that in SPFX, so SharePoint Framework, using the PnPjs library and the Microsoft Graph client utility provided by the PnPjs library. In fact, whenever you get throttled by Microsoft Graph, PnPjs will try for you up to 3 times by default and will give you back a well-defined exception that you can use to understand that you have been throttled. So, like always, let me move to the demo environment and let me show you how to do that in practice. So, here we have a demo web part that we have already seen in the previous episode of this series, where I can play with the Microsoft Graph using SharePoint Framework. And this time I'm going to play with PnPjs inside my SharePoint Framework web part. So, in order to simulate the throttling of my request, let me run the MT65 proxy to provide back the 429 error, so the throttling exception, for a rate of 100, so for all of the requests which will go through the proxy. So let me start the proxy itself and let me go back to SharePoint Framework. If I will start a request in PnPjs with no error handling, we can see that PnPjs is going to make the request to the target Microsoft Graph API, and here we can see the 429 simulated by the MT65 proxy. And then after 3 requests, we can see that we get an exception in the console, but again, we are not handling the exception right here, so we need to do proper handling in our own code. If I will do proper handling, I can intercept the throttling exception, and again, now we are going through a set of up to 3 requests by default through PnPjs, and then I can show in the output that I've got the throttling issue because we exceeded the 3 requests, which by default are the threshold limit for the throttling when consuming Microsoft Graph through PnPjs. So how does it work under the cover? First of all, let me stop the proxy to show you that when the proxy is not running and the request is not throttled, we can get actually our result. And in fact, we can get it properly regardless which kind of invocation we do. But from a code perspective, here we have a web part. In the web part, I'm relying on a demo service that I created. I don't want to dig into the details of the service, but basically the service is a service class which relies on the graph client of PnPjs. And we have a really straightforward method that simply does the graph.me request to get the response, and this one doesn't have any exception handling, and so it will fail, while the other one is a method which will still make a request for me, but also optimized, selecting just the properties that I need. In case of successful response, I will return it to the consumer class, and in case of an exception, we can see that the exception that we catch with the try-catch construct of TypeScript, we can then see if it is an HTTP request error, and if that is the case, we can see if the status is 429, and if it is 429, we can do something. If it is any other kind of exception, we can do something else. In the React component that we use, first of all, we provide the demo service instance to the React component itself in the render method of my web part. And then in the TSX component, we have a couple of methods which will rely on that demo service. The first one will simply get the current user via PnPjs, and if we get the user data, it will show it. If not, it will simply show an empty content. While the one with the error handling will rely on the try-catch construct, and in case of an exception caught by the code, we simply show the message of the exception in the UI. So we can easily do the try-catch of the method invocation because actually we have proper handling of the exception in PnPjs in our service class that we use right here. And this code, of course, can even be inside the React component, but personally speaking, I rather use a service class whenever I need to consume external services in my real-life enterprise-level solutions built with SharePoint Framework. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again.